Welcome to Olympian Water Testing, giving you the best in water analysis. Today we're looking at clean water action, the dangers of hexavalent chromium, or known as chromium 6, in drinking water. So this is specifically with California. They're expected to establish a new drinking water standard for hexavalent chromium. Thanks to influence by both polluters and water agencies, this standard is here to protect the public. And the Clean Water Act, SDW, which was passed by the EPA, is to ensure that the chemical is not only regulated in water, but the standard is set at an even more protective level than it was previously. So what actually happened? What's the background on hexavalent chromium, and why are they doing this? So the movie Aaron Brockovich alerted the public to great suffering in the town of Hinckley, CA experienced due to cancer-causing chemical hexavalent chromium, known as chromium 6, in its drinking water. And while the levels in most impacted communities are much lower than Hinckley's, hexavalent chromium was eventually detected in 2,475 drinking water sources, spread throughout 51 of 58 counties. So this is quite prevalent. And while chromium 3 may not be harmful, chromium 6 definitely can be, and is classified as a carcinogen. And to see it in that many counties, that is quite alarming. And that should raise concern not only in this region, but in any region you're at, to test for this and make sure it's not there. Despite the publicity from the film and severe health effects associated with the hexavalent chromium, the federal government has not regulated this toxic chemical in drinking water. Chromium occurs in the environment largely in two forms. We have trivalent chromium, chromium 3, which is an essential human nutrient, and hexavalent chromium, chromium 6, which is toxic. And despite this difference, chromium is regulated in drinking water as total chromium at a level of 50 parts per billion. The standard averages the toxicity of both hexavalent and less dangerous trivalent chromium in the water. And since state scientists have determined the level of hexavalent chromium in drinking water that would not lead to significant health impacts is 0.2 parts per billion. Combined approach is clearly not adequate to protect public health. So they're taking the lead temporarily. And in 2014, regulators released a final hexavalent chromium drinking water standard of 10 parts per billion, making this the only government in the U.S. to regulate the chemical in the water. And while this was a major step, it was not ideal given that the standard was 500 times higher than the level the state scientists determined would not result in significant public health problems. And many people in that state would continue to be exposed to unsafe levels of this carcinogen. Even the Department of Health's decision was primarily based on the cost of water treatment, and that's one thing to take a look at. That even you might say, well, the state or the federal level or even the municipal level might be looking at it, but how much? And even if they have a standard, is that standard good enough to protect your health when you're drinking water? In 2017, public safety faced a major setback when manufacturers and the Tech Association sued the Superior Court of Sacramento over the hexavalent chromium regulation. Sadly, the court ruled that the standard was invalid because the state did not adequately document why the MCL was economically feasible. So you have a maximum containment level, but they're not really following the guidelines as well as they should, versus being based on what would protect the health and safety of the citizens. And since the CMTA has tried to stop other drinking water protections using the same legal strategy, they have been unsuccessful. So the State Water Board is working to reestablish drinking water standards for hexavalent chromium this year, and is in the process of reevaluating the health information as well as technologies that could provide treatment at lower costs. And Clean Water Action is working with different organizations and impacted communities to make sure this time the standard is both truly health protective and stands up to legal challenges meant to delay or prevent holding polluters accountable. Now, hexavalent chromium has a lot of different health effects. As we know, reproductive harm, short-term and long-term exposures can lead to eye and respiratory irritation, asthma attacks, nasal ulcers, dermal burns, anemia, acute gastroenteritis, vertigo, gastrointestinal hemorrhage, convulsions, ulcers, damage or failure of the liver and kidneys. So this is something to definitely test your water for. Even if there are some state and different regulations around the Department of Health, while they may help, they may not be enough. That's why it's always great to have your water periodically tested for high levels of chromium 6.